Hello, welcome to Anita the Pedagogue channel. Today we want to look at a prose analysis, a short story analysis of Kaakyire Akosomo Nyantakyi's story, The General's Hunter. Let's begin. We will be looking at a biography of the author, the title, the setting, point of view, plot analysis, characterization, literary devices, themes, and some likely examination questions. Let's quickly zoom and look at a biography of the author. Kaakyire Akosomo Nyantakyi is Ghanaian by birth and a naturalized United States citizen. He started his education in Ghana and a 4-year teacher's certificate A and proceeded to further his education at Oklahoma State University in Stillwater. In 1983, he earned his bachelor's degree from Oklahoma State University. In June of 1987, he taught reading at LaGuardia Community College and then worked for the New York City Board of Education as a classroom teacher of English. In the year 1991, he earned his master's degree in creative writing from the Queens College of the City University of New York. His MA thesis, a novella entitled Ancestral Sacrifice, received so much critical praise that he developed it into a novel and published it in the year 1998. Between 2002 and 2009, Ancestral Sacrifice became Ghana's core English literature textbook for senior high schools. He is married to Mrs. Alesafua Nyantakyi and has 5 children. Having looked at a biography of the author, we will now move on and look at what the title, The General's Hunter, suggests to us. The General's Hunter, as a title, gives the reader the impression that the story will be about a kind-hearted hunter. The story reveals that a rich, kind-hearted hunter was wrongfully accused due to his generosity, but was vindicated in the end. The setting of the story. This story takes place in a village called Bobrapa, and this word in Akan or in Twi language literally means live a good life, Bobrapa. Again, we have the use of the word kikako, which is also an Akan word, and it also means keep speaking, literally. So the name of the chief of Bobrapa, Odineho Nyansafo, also means a wise leader. All this about the setting suggests to us that this story is happening in Ghana, or it is set in Ghana because of the names that have been used here. And the story actually spans over a short time. Let's now move on and look at the point of view the story is written in. This story is written in the third-person narrative point of view. And the narrator uses a lot of third-person pronouns which helps us to identify this point of view, such as he, she, they, throughout the story. Again, we are certain that it is the third-person point of view because the person narrating the story is not part of the story. So we know definitely that this is not a first-person narrative, but the third-person narrative point of view. We'll now move on and look at the diction of the story. The story is written in simple English language. The vocabulary is basic and easy to understand. There is also the use of some pidgin English by the character Kokotako, such as, okay, I dey tell am so. Thank you, Massa. Make you sleep well. So again, pidgin English is a mixture of English and local languages, which enables people who do not share a common language to communicate. So most African countries are made up of numerous different ethnic groups who do not necessarily have a lingua franca. So pidgin has been developed. So we know right away that the character Kokotako is not fluent in English, but then uses the pidgin to also communicate with the others. Let's now go on and look at the plot analysis. The plot is the sequence of events in the story, how the story unfolds and gradually progresses. So the story begins by introducing the set in Bobrapa, a Ghanaian farming community, and also the main character, Asempa. He is presented as a kind, down-to-earth hunter who traded at Bobrapa. He later moved to reside in Bobrapa at the invitation of Chief Odinehu Nyansafo. One day, while Asempa was hunting, he saw a rattlesnake and a rat that had been caught in a bush trap. The animals pleaded for him to spare their lives and they will repay him. Upon releasing them, the rattlesnake showed Asempa some herbs which, when mixed with the blood of a slanderer, can bring to life a person bitten by a snake, while the brother of the rat showed him some gold dust as an appreciation for saving the baby rat. Asempa built a modern house with brick and became rich, but he continued to show kindness to the poor people. Fast forward, we move on to the rising action. So at the rising action, the story's conflict begins when gold bars are declared missing in the palace. Kukutaku, a servant in the palace, and the Jasehini framed Asempa and accused him of having a hand in the missing gold bars due to his sudden richness. Asempa was invited to the palace, but he could not reveal the source of his wealth. He couldn't tell them about the gold dust that he had been given by the rat's family at the bush. He was therefore sentenced to death by hanging. The villagers sympathized with him due to his unfortunate sentence. Do like, share, comment, and subscribe to this channel for more content like this. The story moves to the climax, and at the climax we realize that when Asempa was about to be hanged, news of the death of the princess due to a snake bite was announced. Asempa was permitted to go alone to the forest to get herbs, while the queen pinpointed Kukutaku as a slanderer. Asempa used his blood and the leaves to heal the princess. The story moves on to the following action, where the chief ruled for Asempa and the princess to get married, and they were both happy. Afterwards, Jasehini was found to be a traitor and was sentenced to hanging together with Kukutaku. The story gradually moves to the end, the resolution, and whilst Jasehini was found to be a traitor and sentenced to death by hanging, Asempa was made to take the place of him as a member of the Council of Elders. The chief set a date for the marriage of Asempa and the princess. And that brings us to the end of the plot analysis. Let's move on and look at the characterization. We have the protagonist, the main character as Asempa, and the antagonist, the villain, or the opposer of the protagonist as Kukutaku, and then Jasehini. Let's look at the character description for Odinehu Nyansafo. He is the chief of Bobrapa. His name in Akan means wise man. He was a caring chief who supported his people by building them houses. He instructed the hunter Asempa to permanently reside in Bobrapa. He made sure Asempa settled at a place of his choice. When allegations of theft of gold were made against Asempa, he made sure that he invited Asempa for questioning, and after consultation with Abewatia, he and his sub-chief decided that Asempa should be sentenced to death by hanging. He is seen as a democratic leader who listens to the opinions of his followers and sub-chiefs. Asempa. Asempa is the main character of the story. He is a smart-looking gentleman. He is described as a dark, tall, square-shouldered with bushy hair man. His eyebrows and mustache are well trimmed. He is a hunter by profession. Before living in Bobrapa, he resided in a town called Kikako. He is described as a kind, honest, and humble man by the people he interacts with. These positive behaviors led Nana Odinehu Nyansafo to invite him to live in his town. Asempa also had an exceptional secret talent for communicating with animals. One day when he goes to the bush and shows kindness to a baby rat and rattlesnake, they offer him a pot of gold and some leaves that brings anyone dead from a snake bite alive. Again, Asempa is a very loyal man. He did not betray the rat who promised him not to disclose how he came by the gold gifted to him by the rat's family, despite being accused by the Jasehene and Kokotako of being involved in the robbery of gold from the chief's treasury. He was vindicated when he saved the princess, as Kokotako confessed that he was instructed to lie about him. He ended up marrying the princess and replacing the Jasehene as a member of the Council of Elders. The character Kokotako. He serves as a palace attendant at the palace of the chief of Bobrapa. He, upon the orders of Jasehene, accused Asempa of stealing gold from the palace. He is described as a slanderer who falsely accused Asempa, and his blood was withdrawn to help cure the princess. He was sentenced to death by hanging by Odineho Nyansafo upon the demands of the villagers of Bobrapa. The Queen Mother. She is the wife of the chief of Bobrapa. She quickly identified Kokotako as a slanderer and pointed him out for his blood to be drawn to save her daughter, Princess Yabejina. She insisted that Kokotako reveal why he lied that Asempa stole gold from the palace. Princess Yabejina. She is the princess of Bobrapa and the daughter of Odineho Nyansafo. She is a tall, shapely, but slender young lady. She is fair in complexion and has beautiful eyes. She is very fond of Asempa the hunter. When a snake bit her, Asempa used the blood from a slanderer and a leaf from the forest to bring her to life. She fell into the arms of Asempa to signify she had accepted to marry him. Jasehene. Jasehene was the palace property overseer and a member of the Council of Elders of Bobrapa. He conspired with Kokotako, the palace attendant, to lie that Asempa was part of a robbery that led to stealing of gold from the palace treasury. The truth was revealed when Kokotako revealed that Jasehene asked him to accuse Asempa falsely. Jasehene and Kokotako were sentenced to hanging at the end of the story. Let's take a look at some literary devices in the story. So, personification. The snake showed him a yellowish green leaf, and here we see that the snake has been personified and given the ability to be able to show a human being something. Also, situations like that usually take care of themselves. We know that a situation cannot take care of. It's human beings that can take care of things. So here, situation is being given a human attribute. Again, and his eyes flashed a rebuke at Asempa. The eyes cannot actually rebuke, Asempa. So here there's personification. Alliteration, the repetition of initial consonant sounds. Asempa stood still and gave a silent stare. So we see the repetition of the initial consonant sound S. Good God, this is too true to believe. So the repetition of G, the consonant G, good God, is also identified as an alliteration. Hyperbole, extreme exaggeration. An example is he was filled with anger and resentment and his eyes flashed a rebuke at Asempa. So this is describing how angry the Jasehene was against Asempa, and it's an extreme exaggeration. Again, a drench of shame was all over him. To say shame is all over somebody is also an exaggeration. Then we have irony. That is a contradictory situation. So the conclusion of this story is seen as a situational irony, where Jasehene, who is the accuser, becomes the accused and gets the punishment he planned for Asempa, that is to be hanged. He ended up being hanged himself. Again, we see the use of imagery a lot. So an example is a piece of cloth stronger than cotton twine served as the man's nose, one end tied in a circular form was carefully suspended in the air. So here, this imagery appeals to our sense of sight for us to picture exactly how the cloth was tied around him. He was a tall, square-shouldered man with bushy hair. He was dark in complexion and his eyebrows and mustache were well trimmed. So this also helps you to picture how the person being described looks. So it also appeals to the sense of sight. Again, Asempa said, shaking his head. Some of the elders registered their disbelief by looking at each other with puzzled eyes. So this is also an imagery that helps the reader to imagine and picture the exact scene. It also appeals to the sense of sight. There's also repetition, and we realize that Mary here has been repeated. Both must hang has been repeated, and also we must go with him has been repeated. And repetition is usually done for emphasis. Onomatopoeia. Giggled. So giggled. People spoke in whispers and in an airy atmosphere. So whispers is also an onomatopoeia. Also, there's been the use of a proverb when we see Odneho Nyansafo and his council of elders cannot allow a common handshake to extend beyond the elbow. This proverb implies that the friendly gesture of allowing Asempa to come and live in the town of Bobapa, he's taking it for granted and is beginning to call for a sort of a fight or doing things that are signifying that he no more wants the friendly terms they are in with him. Again, there's been the use of oxymoron, a literary device which implies two contradictory words have been put side by side. An example is a loud silence suddenly enveloped the gathering. So loud silence. How can silence be loud? So these two contradictory words being put together is an oxymoron. Also, there's been the use of an idiom. We should let sleeping dogs lie. It means that we should let whatever issues they are not be discussed or spoken about, but we should let things be instead of probing further. Simile. Simile is comparing two things using as like or than. An example is they lived their lives as if they knew the 10 commandments that God gave Moses. So this implies that the way the people were living their lives was as if they was being compared to how the Israelites used the 10 commandments to live without sin. Again, Asempa held out his arm towards the princess and she softly fell into them like a child. So they are comparing how the princess fell into the arms of Asempa to that of how a child would. Again, others also felt it was impossible for such a good-natured person like Asempa the hunter. So here, Asempa the hunter is being compared to a good-natured person. There's also been the use of allusion, and specifically biblical allusion. Allusion is a reference to a well-known person, character, place, or event that a writer makes to deepen the reader's understanding of their work. An example is, by all standards, they lived their lives as if they knew the 10 commandments that God gave to Moses. So the allusion is the mention of the 10 commandments, and also that was given to Moses by God, because this is something that you can actually find in the Bible. So it's a biblical allusion. Let's move on to the themes or the central ideas we are able to pick from this story. One is the wicked will not go unpunished. People who are wicked and plot against others may feel they have achieved the harm they have devised, but their evil plans will not yield in the long run. Kokotakwe and Jasehine falsely accused Asempa of stealing gold bars from the palace due to envy. This resulted in Asempa being sentenced to death by hanging, but due to his kindness, he was released. However, Kokotakwe and Jasehine were soon found to be slanderers and traitors respectively. They were both punished for their wickedness. Plotting wickedness against others will eventually return to the wicked person, where they will be punished. Another theme that we can deduce is it pays to be kind and humble. There is a saying that sharing is caring. When you share with the needy, you are helping others to have a better life. Staying humble also makes you approachable. The villagers of Bobrapa described Asempa as kind, honest, and humble. His positive behavior paved the way for him to be invited to live in Bobrapa by the chief. In addition, due to these behaviors, Asempa was sympathetic to the plight of the rat and rattlesnake, which led him to spare their lives. As a result, they repaid him by giving him rewards that helped him immensely. When people show kindness to others, they also receive kindness and help when they are in need. Now, let's look at some likely examination questions. Kindly try your hands on these questions. What is the setting of the story? What was the name of the chief of Bobrapa? What narrative point of view is the story written in? In the end, what happened to Asempa? What gift did Asempa have? What led to Asempa's sentence to death by hanging by the chief? Can you identify and explain any three literary devices in the story? What occupation did the people of Bobrapa engage in mainly? What is the climax of the story? Who is the main character of the story? And explain one theme of the story. I hope this lesson was useful. Put in your comments and questions and I'll respond to you. Do like, share, and subscribe to this channel. Until I come your way again, keep learning and be the best version of yourself.